Okay, thank you everyone for joining this past lecture. We are very happy to be hosting Natalia from Shepherd Robson, and PAST is a collective of students who run events like this, and our aim is to create community, not just in students of architecture, but in the world of architecture and in all the different communities we're a part of. And we're really proud to be sponsored by RIBA. So thank you for coming, and I hope you enjoy. I'm going to pass the to Dante now, who's going to introduce Natalia.
As mentioned by Jubilee, we have a guest speaker from Shepherd and Robson. Her name is Natalia, and she's here to give a presentation on architects as lead designers in projects and what that's all about and the different possibilities within the industry as well. So, yeah, Natalia, you can start.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So I'm just going to quickly introduce myself, although Beyonce has done it already. So yes, I work for Shepherd Robson. They're in the top 100 UK practices. I have been practicing for around 12 years, although I have qualified only, say, 4 years ago, I think. I'm also qualified in Poland, but I have done all of my training in UK. Thank you for inviting me, and I really hope you find this useful. So let's just start the presentation. I hope everyone can see the screen. Okay, here we go. So hello, already done that. And today's lecture will be on, we'll be talking about leading on a daily basis at work. We will also be talking about various types of leadership within an architectural practice. We will then talk about architects as lead designers on a project, the technical processes involved, and then some psychological, political processes, if you will. And then in the end, we're going to have a quick session on how can you get into that leader mindset and prepare for your career. So the presentation should take around 45 to 50 minutes, and then in the end we're going to have questions and answers session. So let's move on. So being an architect means being a leader. Hold on, just bear with me because there you go. So being an architect means being a leader. You're always in pursuit of a better solution. You're constantly driving the evolution of a design, at every stage to all kinds of degree. So it's going to be your mindset, and if you think you don't have it yet, or if you're worrying about it, or if it sounds scary, don't worry, you will get it. There's no escape. Yeah. You'll always be looking for new materials, for example, in terms of performance and aesthetics. Or you'll be looking for new, more efficient building techniques, researching more sustainable, more cost-effective, etc., etc. In some extent, these will be down to your client's drive, maybe your company policy, or government policies. So, as I said, there is no escape. From the very first moment you get to sit in the office, you'll be forced in such mindset, kind of, you could say. Say your first task will be drawing up changing lockers, for example. You have to do the layout and details for it, So you'll be given a criteria of available space, maybe a performance specification, and from there you'll have to do some research, on a variety of products. And it will depend on their suitability, what you can use. For example, wet areas such as around a swimming pool will require humidity resistant products, you know. So from my experience spanning across 3 completely different practices, you'll be handed a task in and you'll be pointed in the right direction. But in reality, there's not really any, nobody will sit down with you and do it with you. So you're expected to ask questions, of course, but very often you'll get where to find the answer rather than an actual answer. So I think personally, this is mostly down to how much information we as architects have to look out for and keep in a kind of, we have to be aware of. And I think you'd have to be a robot to remember every answer. Although I do know a few people that are like that, and it's just amazing. You just ask them and they know everything, every minimum dimension, every building regulation. You know, for me, I just have a tingling in my head and I know exactly where to go and check it, but I couldn't just, I couldn't tell you exactly what it was. But so anyway, as I already mentioned, you always have to look out for building regulations wherever they apply. So going back to that simple task lockers, if your project manager suggests use an already tested item, for example, something they used in a previous project maybe, yes, you still have to find the most efficient arrangement and finally find the best way of how to convey the message to the other parties, you know, through the drawing, and the other parties being other engineers or builders. Yeah. So you think this may sound trivial, yeah, but I'm sure you know it already from your portfolios, collating your portfolios, etc. You'll be changing your layouts and annotations back and forth on the drawings just to make sure it's as clear as possible and that you have everything in there, because if something is not conveyed, it won't be built properly. So yeah, you kind of have to think of a drawing as a sign language in which you communicate with all the other disciplines, such as mechanical and electrical engineers. But without an exaggeration, these various other disciplines are not like a different country or a culture. So they're more like a whole different planet, you know, even a galaxy. Sometimes I think even a different dimension, you know, it depends on the project, I guess. But everyone is going to have a different experience, but be prepared to speak to people that don't see things the way you do. Okay. So next, leading within the practice. There's a variety of roles that involve leadership and, you know, the actual leader title on your architectural career path. You can become a project leader and lead the whole team. You can be just like a section leader, say structural coordination, or maybe facades, which is also called external envelope lead. You could be an interiors lead. You can also be a lead of a small offline study, for example, that's been requested by a client. Or you can be a task leader, such as a layout for the lockers I mentioned before. Or you can be leading a slightly bigger tasks, such as packages. So a whole collection of drawings that is responsible for, say, sanitary fittings. So this will start very early, as I said, literally the minute you enter the office. Yeah. Here is an example of a team structure. This one is from quite a big project. This was a Westfield extension in London. The construction value was around 600 million pounds. So it's really a massive project. that diagram has evolved and changed many times, but at its peak, I think we had just over 30 people working on it. And just to give you a quick overview of what the roles are and what they entail. So, for example, at the top, you will have partners. You know, in this case, we have 2 partners involved, and they will deal mostly with a commercial side of the project. So agreement, contract negotiations, liaising with the PI insurance with regards to the contract and the contract particulars, fees calculations, monitoring the profit, you know, managing the resources. So how many people you can allocate to the project and, you know, still keep the profit on, but also at the same time, you know, can you meet all the deadlines? Another thing they would be dealing with, it would be any disputes, any client and consultant negotiations when there were delays or disputes. Any fee variations, which is when the client asks you for something additional, such as the offline study that I mentioned, for example. So the project is going on, continuing on, and and then the client is asking you to do something completely on the side without stopping the project whatsoever. And then only at some point you may or may not implement that additional work. And this may sound a little bit confusing. So to give you an example, which will probably confuse you as well anyway, but the Westfield extension originally was the extension of the main mall and an anchor store, yeah. Then they added on a cinema on top of the old building, but that was connecting into the extension. And then I think 1 year or 1.5 years into the project, when we were already building on site, the client came to us and said, you know what, we want to add an extension to the extension. And for example, I was briefly leading on that just to take it to stage 3, because, you know, the project was already in construction and we had to kind of catch up with this. And we had to take it through all the stages, RIBA stages, very quickly. So that's another type of leading. Yeah, so to make things more complicated, when we started developing that offline study, the client then a few months later said, you know what, we want to add an extension on top of that extension. So basically, they wanted to add a restaurant block to the original project. And then on top of the restaurant block, they decided to add an office block. So yeah, things can get really, really messy. And for all of these things, you have to have a person that will be responsible for something. Yeah, you will just get your hands on something like that very quickly when you're in the office. I was a part 2 student when I got to do this. But anyway, moving on to the level, well, below, I shouldn't say below, because all team members work together and, you know, we support each other. It's not necessarily a tier, under a tier. It's kind of like everybody supporting everybody. So you will have leaders of something in the people you see at the bottom boxes. So like break for tenancy or mall internal team. These people will be leading packages, etc. So yeah, if I've already mentioned the leaders of sections. So you have lead architect for M&E and structures and enabling works. Enabling works are they're on site, preparing the site for the project to begin. For example, demolition, you know. Then you have the project design team the coordination team, which is where you can see my name actually at that time. That's what I was supporting, mostly the lead architect on M&E structure coordination. And we were responsible for processing all of the information from all the other consultants and feeding that into our design. Because yes, you will have a design intent, and we will have all the layouts, but then you will get the structural engineer come in and say, you know, you cannot have it like that because there's not enough, it's not strong enough or something. So you'll have to review your layouts. I mean, with this project, the story was a little bit different because someone else did the concept design, and then we had to rework it. So it's constantly going back and forth. But anyway, a little bit more on that later. And then moving to support staff, you know, you will have people in a company that are, you know, specializing in something like technical reviews, for example, or specifications. You will have document controllers who will process all the information that we as a company issue. All of these people are there to support you, but they will be working on more than one project, not just your project. Yeah. So for this particular project, we also had a dedicated BEAM coordinator that's now used everywhere. Everyone will have one for a project because most clients want a complete 3D and clash detection. So yeah, so you see another subdivision of teams. And then at the very bottom, you have another line of people. These are actually a repeat people of some of the people at the top. So as I said, you can't really look at this as a tier model, as a tiered model, but you will have someone who's going to be liaising with building control. You have someone who's going to be liaising with on the planning matters. And maybe a building control for a different part of the project, because in this case, that's how it was split. It was the main wall and the anchor store was separately because it was so big. So yeah, as I said, at that point, I was a part 2 and I was learning the coordination of structural and M&E, and I really got into it. I know it's a bit geeky, but I love a challenge, and this is like Rubik's Cube on steroids, I tell you. But I mean, I also got to lead several offline studies and do lots of spatial development. I've designed all of the Westfield cores, all of the Westfield core layouts with the input of M&E engineer, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I moved on to the role of M&E and structural lead on my next project, and that's an office building in Paddington in London. And there it is, the beauty. It's going to be finished soon, which is quite a miracle considering what's been happening. But I haven't seen it. I haven't been to site, sadly, in a year. And I just want to show you briefly. This is the plan. This is what whoever will then later use the building, they will see when they walk into it. They will see, you know, the interiors, the finishes, the desks, and everything. But what nobody ever sees is this, which is all the evil that lurks behind all the finishes. And you know, this is MEP. I hope you can see this clearly. It's just like a massive spaghetti mess. This is just below the ground floor, and this is also a plant space, which you can't really see plant because all of this is ductwork going, but there's way more plant below as well. And yeah, so that's currently what I do. Just a second. And that brings us to other disciplines. Bear with me 1 second. Just one more thing. When you get to work in an office, when you start your careers, or even when you do your, say summer experience or something, every time you get to try something, you will find a thing that gets you really passionate and excited. I like solving these problems, for example, but I know I have a very good friend at work. She is just ecstatic about materials. I mean, she loves to touch them. She loves the colors, yeah, she just loves doing interiors. So you can rest assured that it may take you a year or two. It depends on what projects you're going to get to work on and what packages you'll be working on. But you will find something you will find your route. Basically, that's what I'm saying. Then, so architectural team as the lead designer on project. So that means you, among others, yeah. If we can start talking about other disciplines, because as you know, architecture is incredibly multidisciplinary. So here's an example of the wider project team model. Okay, so now the diagram I just showed you before, I don't know if you can see my arrow, but the architect here, Shepherd Robson, this little tiny box here, all those 30 people, over 30 people fall under this now. And actually, they also fall in the middle here under the lead consultant, yeah? So one thing I need to tell you is that these models will differ between projects. They will depend on the procurement route. They will depend on the contract, etc., etc. And same as with the team, the practice, the architectural team models, they will evolve and change throughout the project. So here, this is also from the Westfield project I have been talking about. Apologies, I think the red somehow, I don't know why it's so blurred, but it says project manager, and then you have design and construction. The top part is how the client was divided. So you've got the money, you've got the fund, then you've got the Westfield, the client as a brand, and then you've got tenants, which are also a client, but all of them feed into a project manager that was set up by Westfield, and I think it was called Westfield Europe or something. And then the only the red box was our client, our as the architectural practice. And in this setup, we are the lead consultant. That's what we were appointed as. And then we are the architect as well. So as you see, we oversee other disciplines, yeah? And we're responsible for it. So yeah, let's talk about what other disciplines are there. So you can have a structural, well, you will always have a structural engineer. I shouldn't say you can, you will always have a structural engineer. You have an MEP engineer, which is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. You have fire engineer, BREEAM, which is building sustainability and performance. You'll have a facade access consultant. They develop a strategy for cleaning and maintenance. Traffic engineer, or sometimes called highways engineer. You have health and safety consultant. That's not just health and safety, that applies not just during construction, but also to the safe use of a building afterwards. So an architect is responsible for some of it as well, actually. So for example, actually responsibility for that falls on many people. But you have to be mindful of, say, areas from which you can fall, like the roof edges, etc. So all of this has to be in your design. But you get a health and safety consultant because there is a lot to it. So you can also get a program consultant on larger projects, landscape architects, planning consultants, again, on larger projects, acoustic consultant, waste management consultant, security consultant, and there's I don't know how many more that I didn't mention here, but there is lots. There can be lots of people working on the project design team, of which you are part of, yeah. So every single one of those disciplines will have sections, subsections, and they all have their rules, regulations, and you know, we as architects, we are not expected to be experts in those, but unfortunately we kind of have to oversee it all, and we have to have some idea, okay? And most importantly, we have to ask the right questions. So, oops. Okay, so a little bit about technical processes, which is also called a workflow between disciplines. That's something you'll get familiar with quite quickly, because it's about exchanging the information, yeah? So this is again from the same project, from Westfield. The technical processes, you know, and how the design team deals with information produced by all parties. As I said, these are called workflows, and very often companies use online platforms to manage the flow of information, such as Aconex or A-Site. All of them will drive you crazy, I promise you, but you will have to use it. Very often it's in the contract, and there's no getting away from it. But basically it's to control how the information is processed, and to make sure it's processed in a timely manner. So you get, say, 2 weeks or 10 working days to return the drawings. And you can see here it will go in circles as well. You will receive a set of drawings from the architectural consultant. We as lead consultants will check them against our the design, and then, you know, if they meet our expectations, if everything is as we agreed, for example, in the workshops, we will give it a status A, and that never happens. I probably in my last project, status A, I don't know, maybe 2 handfuls in hundreds of drawings. So unfortunately, that's the reality. You can give a status B if, for example, you spot an issue, you spot that something's not matching, but it's an easy thing to rectify, and you make a comment about it. You say, do you know what, this meets everything except for that. You have to change it, and if you change it, then you can go ahead. You can move the drawing further. You can move the information further. It will be approved, yeah. Yeah, so you give it status B, but obviously now the responsibility will be back with the person, with the team that the information came from, because they have to make sure that they amend whatever we've commented on before they release the information again. Status C is a complete no-no. Although I've seen it happen, even builders actually progress and just go ahead on status C drawings, which is really bad practice and should never ever happen, but it does happen. But status C is a complete no-no. The drawing has been just rejected, and that's it, yeah. So I won't bore you anymore with that. Just another quick thing about, just going back here, one thing I missed, it's there is a document called Design Responsibility Matrix, and that will be part of the contract particulars. It is important to know that when something is part of the contract, it's sacred, okay? But so yeah, going back to variations, you can have variations to who's responsible and who's the actual leader. So for example, in this instance, yes, we're the overall leader, but the architectural consultant was responsible for all the structure, for example, and they would be the final approvers, you know, or anything that was going underground, that was going on underground. So drainage, for example, a civil engineer would actually be approving those drawings. This is approving before they go to the subcontractor, to the builder, yeah, because obviously the first set of coordination happens beforehand. Okay. Now a little bit about all political, psychological processes, not sure how to call them, but you're gonna start noticing very, very quickly in how people deal with all the other wider design team members. Yeah, so not just your team from your architectural practice, but everyone else involved on the project. And you will learn the importance of the relationships with other consultants. Sometimes you will struggle to get crucial information off the other design team members. You know, they may be stalling if they're delayed or something, short-staffed, or, you know, for whatever reason. And you have to learn to balance between giving them some breathing space or being very strict and cracking down on any such delays. Yeah. But you have to remember that you yourself may at some point be in a reverse situation, you know, so you need to learn to find solutions that are working for everyone. For example, if you're in a situation where you're delayed with issuing information to a consultant, speak to them and, you know, ask them, can you prioritize? Can you stagger the release? Ask them what's the most important they have to have first to you know, continue working and not have a delay on their side, you know. But yeah, and you can do the same if they need it, you know, in return. I've seen a lot of that happening, because there will be delays. There will always be delays for one or a different reason. But unfortunately, one of the favorite argument topics is exactly that. Who do we blame for any kind of delay? You'll be playing email ping pong once a week, I promise you as well. But it is incredibly important that any misunderstandings are resolved swiftly. And, you know, if there is a problem that has arisen from something being missed, it is important to not focus on whose fault it is, but, you know, just focus on finding the solution. You know, it has to be rectified the problem has to be rectified as a combined effort. So maybe it's a balance of being kind of an enemy with the other consultants, but also in the same time, you're teammates, because you're in front of the client, you're playing on the same team, kind of thing. It's weird, I know, but it happens. You'll be discussing this with your colleagues all the time, you know. So you will be learning from your leader, for example, or from your colleagues, to be diplomatic. And every day you will observe how to deal with all kinds of crises, you know, because it will happen, it's guaranteed. One useful advice that I got from my mentor, my leader, was that if a crisis occurs, if I don't know, if I was provoked or something was happening on a project, and I had to respond, he told me, you know, write the email and then go get lunch. Maybe then go get tea and go to the loo. When you come back, read it again. If this situation was really, really bad, and if, for example, I was really worked up, he said, you know, just, you know, even clean your desk. But the point is, you will get frustrated, you will get offended, you will get outraged, or, you know, you'll get scared and stressed out. But what you ought to remember is you're in the leader team, okay, as a whole. So you need to be the wiser person. If you hit a crisis like this, if you feel it's really serious, never be afraid or ashamed to ask your colleagues for their input. You know, it can be the project manager, it can be the partner. I've watched many situations where 3 people were writing one email. Literally 3 people were writing an email, because email is part of the records, and what and how you respond to something may later be used in disputes, for example, you know, or you may trigger the other party to act out, or you may provoke them, if you will. All of these are kind of political processes, you know, psychological processes, but it will become natural to you. It's happening every day, all the time, and you know, you will observe it less or more intensely depending on the project and the company. But yeah, you're guaranteed to go through drama. So good news, it won't be boring. I can promise you that. But yeah, don't worry about. You don't have to be a diplomat. You don't have to be a politician. You really will pick this up naturally. You just, you know, don't think about it like, oh my God, you know what, I'm not really good at talking to people or something. It's not like that. It will just happen, because even if you feel, again, if you don't feel confident in writing back in certain situations, you ask your colleagues, and you know, after a few times you actually know how to deal with it. So it's a very good skill that you will pick up. So leading is an art of balancing. And to sum up, that we have to be the leaders of balance. I think I'm overusing the word leading, but anyway, whether it's managing resources and navigating between staff shortage and over expenditure, or the carefully derived ratio between the core and support team members, for example, whether it's the balance of friendship and leadership in our approach to other consultants, or when we aim to keep the client satisfied while also drawing a line to their demands, because you just, you know, you will do some things for the client without extra charge, but you can't just be doing that endlessly. So, you know, there's always this balance that we have to find. So yeah, start doing yoga if you don't do yoga yet. Another form of leading, very shortly on this, is leading the client. Maybe not on a project such as Westfield. Clients like this are quite aggressive, and you maybe you actually don't really get to say much, but on, say, a smaller residential project, you will have to take the client through every single step. You probably have to take the client through defining what they even want. They might not know what they want. They might know what they want, but they don't know how to convey it. And that's where we come in. You know, we are trained in the translation of thought concepts into 2D and 3D into something tangible. So yeah. Finally, how? Oh no, too fast. So how do you get into that leadership mindset? So currently things are shifting and everything's changing drastically. I mean, we've all experienced the consequences of the year of pandemic in all ways. I mean, personally, right now, myself, I'm on furlough. I actually requested a furlough so that I could go back home and stay with my grandma. But I know there were a lot of people who went on furlough and didn't really want to go on furlough. There's been redundancies through the industry, and I mean, times are uncertain, and I kind of been through something similar during the 2008 crisis, because that kind of came out of nowhere, and people just just didn't know what to do. You know, we were freshly graduate, we just graduated, and it was very hard to get any kind of placement. But hopefully I can give you a few tips. You're probably already doing some of that, but just because practical knowledge is incredibly important. But it's like gold, say, or maybe Bitcoin for the geeks, but not everybody gets a chance, you know, to get their foot into an office beforehand or even after. For example, in 2008, after that, I was very lucky because I was already working in two practices in the summer, and then I stayed with them during the uni. So, you know, I was very lucky because I had my foot in the door already. But some of it was actually just admin work. But because I was in the office and I saw what was happening, I kind of I saw a direction. I knew where to reach out and where to look for information. So I took an initiative and kind of started learning things. Even if I wasn't doing it in the office, I could see they were doing something, and then I would just go home and research it, you know. So yeah, I don't know how many of you have already been in the office. If you have a contact, make sure you stay in touch with them. Keep calling them, and now start doing it early to get ahead and ensure your place. All those of you who haven't had any experience yet, or those who just had maybe a week, like an experience week, you know, worry not, because you can get practical knowledge in a different way. Everything is within the reach of your hands. And let's just go through quickly. So how can you do that? You can take initiative, yeah? And you need to monitor the current situation. That's very important, because in my case, 12 years ago, a lot of us were caught off guard. And, you know, I myself wasn't a particularly good student. I actually struggled a lot through my bachelor's, and yeah, and not even through, diploma as well. I enjoyed that more, but yeah, I was not a good student. But because I was doing a lot of this extra stuff, I actually had no problem getting a placement straight away, and I've been employed ever since. But I've watched many of my very good friends that were at the top of the year. They were absolutely brilliant, and I've watched them, you know, search for jobs, and for even longer than a year or two, they couldn't find not even unpaid placement. I don't want to scare you. I'm not saying anything like that will happen now. I just kind of want to give you a few tips, because you can do a lot to get ahead. These are the things, yeah. So you should kind of take the leadership of your own development, and you can learn planning processes from the planning portal and from local authority websites. You know, just go to a planning portal, check out all of the information there. A lot of it is publicly accessible. You can actually look through. So that's a planning portal. Oh, just by the way, I will have a file that will have all the notes and links to it. I'll just edit my notes down and send it over to Beyonce, and she can pass it on to you guys. So don't worry about all the links and names. I'll definitely have it. So yeah, so you can learn planning processes, as I mentioned, from the website. You can actually flick through. You can look into existing planning applications. They're on websites of local authorities. Maybe you can even call a company and ask them for a project documents, such as, I don't know, design and access statement. You know, ask them if you could have it for academic purposes. Maybe it's a company you already know and have contacts in there, you know. Next thing, make the best of RIBA support. You already know RIBA is wonderfully organizing this and supporting this lecture. RIBA, even for me during the entire process of studying, it was, the library in London. I know you guys are based in Portsmouth, and libraries at the moment, they're closed, but RIBA has lots for students, and all the information there's not just for students, actually. RIBA has a lot of support for architects, documents, etc. So use those resources. Go to those websites. Look how much you can learn from this. I mean, maybe you already know this, but if you don't have any practical experience, if you read this, you will really, you get the gist. You will know what's happening. And if you're at an interview and someone starts talking to you about it, you will know what they talk about, and you'll be able to respond coherently. And it's okay that you haven't actually done it, but you know about it. So okay, then you can browse building regulations. I mean, what they tell us in part 3. So I know maybe this is a bit early to tell you about this, but as I've been saying this entire lecture, you have to be leaders, and you can just you can take initiative. And yeah, when you're doing your part 3, you have to study building regulations like it's your religion. Yeah, but why don't you just kind of browse through part B, K, and M? Because say you get into the one of the first things, again, that you would do when you get into an office, you get a layout for 5 different flats, and your project manager asks you to check if they are part M compliant, as accessible or adaptable. Yeah. So what you do is you take the drawings away, you go to building regs, you read through every dimension, and you check it against the drawings. So you learn the regulations through practice by reading the document. And if you don't get to practice this way, you just read it through and you will still get the same out of it. There has to be a minimum of 600 mil there. There has to be a minimum of 400 in front of this and that. There are pictures and diagrams, and yes, you won't be checking it against a drawing. But if you're talking to an interviewer, you can say, what, I've been through this, and I know where this information is, and I actually checked it out, and I know about it. So if he will know that if they will give you a task like this, which is very common, you'll know what to do. So another thing to do is industry publications, Architects Journal, RIBA Journal, Detail. There's a plethora of those, and a lot of them have student discounts or are free. Yeah, I think, you should definitely make the best out of free stuff for students. I miss it so much. It's just the best thing. Yeah, so definitely look through these if you can. They will be in the library as well, I think, if you can't sign up. But there are useful things, such as the AJ 100 list, which is a list of 100 biggest and best prospering UK-based architectural practices. And this would give you a solid start to searching a placement. There is a world ranking as well. What else? So that's AJ, I think, subscription for students. That's the list. Oh, hello, Shepard Robson. I think that's 2019 though. And okay, the next thing, competitions. Okay, they are fun. They take up a chunk of your time. That's true, but I think it's very worth to make that time, because competitions will give you very very good experience of you're gonna have requirements. You're gonna have to prepare a certain amount of documents and whatnot, and it gets you in that mindset. It will help you with, I mean, even doing competition submissions for the practice. That's the thing that a lot of students in part 1 and part 2 architectural assistants do. So that's a very good skill to have, and it's also fun as well. So anything like AJ and RIBA, they will have their own student awards. You probably already know this, so apologies if that's not anything new. But you also can get competitions from local authority, from charities such as Open City, from property developers and the wider construction industry. For example, British Property Federation does competitions all the way down to the Burning Man Festival, which is something I've been dreaming to go to. And unfortunately, they canceled it last year when I was supposed to go. But yeah, Westminster does, I think Westminster does it every year. You know, these are really cool. Well, I think it's like that's a 2017 one, or 18 actually. And that's the 2020 that wasn't realized, unfortunately. And for those of you who don't know what Burning Man is, well, I won't tell you right now, but basically they burn it all afterwards. But yeah, these are really cool. You can design as a sculpture or a structure. Okay, the next point, we're nearing the end. So get familiar with a wide range of software used in the industry. I don't know how it is currently in your uni, but I was very lucky as well during my diploma. Our tutors were really pushing for us to explore all the software that there is. They even were inviting their friends outside of the uni hours just to get us to do workshops like with Rhino, with Grasshopper plugins, etc. This is very important because different companies will use different software. You know, obviously, majority use Autodesk, and you have Revit everywhere now nearly. But lots of companies still stay with MicroStation or Vectorworks, or you know, they will use Rhino, AutoCAD. But what other things you have to know? Photoshop, obviously, you know that by now, I'm sure, because yeah. So maybe Keyshot, maybe MicroStation I've mentioned. Revit is the lead now. Navisworks Manager, that's an interesting one. That's for clash detection, and unfortunately, I had to work on that. It's not very pleasant, but this is when you have to import all of the information from different consultants and look for clashes, etc. But this is when everyone works they have to work with files that actually can be imported into it. But anyway, I'm not very good at these. But so a lot of them are free for students. So really, you should be, like all the ones I've mentioned here, you should be opening up and trying and doing mini projects, just so that you know how the interface looks, just so that you've actually used, I don't know, nearly every common command that's on the interface. You should be doing that because, you know, not every company provides training, and unfortunately these skills are just another type of gold, because employers will always prefer someone who can enter the office and just start working on something straight away. You know, they are familiar with the software. Okay, the final point is, who's your leader? So, you know, do you have your architectural guru? I'm sure you all do, but nevertheless, you should always be doing more and more research, you know. For example, mine is Peter Zumthor and Jean Nouvel. I mean, Peter Zumthor, I highly recommend his written work too, you know. For example, Thinking Architecture is a very good book, very tiny as well. So if you don't like reading, it's quite small. But you need precedents. You know, there's no development without precedent. But most importantly, you need inspiration. Not just when you're stuck and have no ideas, but even just to keep you passionate and excited about architecture. So if you don't have your guru yet, find one. But you probably all have one. That's Peter Zumthor, Thermal Valves. So yeah, so to sum up, do research, be driven, and use resources. And in other words, lead basically. And don't be scared. You should be excited. I think you will really enjoy it. I hope, even though I used the word lead a lot, you really shouldn't be scared of it. And yeah, architecture is exciting, and it's a passion, and it's art that's functional, and it's science that's stunning. So I'm very happy for you. And as Goethe once said, architecture is frozen music. And you guys are en route to becoming conductors of most wonderful projects that will shape generations in the future. And I hope you enjoy this, and I hope you find this useful. And thank you for listening. So any questions? You can wake up now.
Does anyone have any questions for Natalia? You guys can like unmute yourself and like speak if you want to.
First, they have to wake up. Hi.
Thank you so much for leading this lecture and for giving it us. It was very insightful. I think you gave us like some really helpful tips I probably wouldn't have thought of for a while. So that was really good. I just wanted to ask, you talked about how one aspect that architects are leaders are with the client, and you can kind of lead the client sometimes in the way that you want it to go. And I was wondering if you had like a specific project that comes to mind where you were able to lead the client a lot.
No, I wasn't that lucky. Well, I've worked on really large scale projects. So no, I wasn't that lucky, because the clients I dealt with, actually, I dealt with clients that were kind of bullies. So it's less of leading them and getting your way, but it's more surviving and like fighting for what you think is right. I don't want it to sound scary, but that's the reality. That you will get tough and difficult clients as well. But this is mostly large projects, and I myself, I've worked on very, very like large scale, as I said, 600 million pounds, and I don't even remember the current budget for this, but because it grew at least recently, unfortunately. But yeah, so yeah, so I hope that answers the question. I think with a smaller project, I can vaguely recall from the first practice I worked at, which was Project Orange, and they were doing small boutique projects, like smaller hotels or maybe residential houses. The client relations were different. They would be talking, I don't want to say like as friends, but it was as if we were consultants and as if we were supporting them all the time. Whereas with big commercial clients, it's more that you're the employee. You're doing what we want this, and you're doing what we want. But this is down to, they have experience. Clients such as Westfield, they've done so many malls. They know how to do things efficiently, and they want to do it their way. So this is what it comes down to, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Oh, I see something in the chat. Do you think being a woman in architecture has affected your career in any way? Well, yes. I have to deal with a variety of situations. Like, building site isn't necessarily a pleasant place, but it's changing. I think it changed a lot, and it's I think mostly I found it funny, but I have many times noticed that I'm in a room and there is 12 other people and I'm the only woman, and sometimes it was difficult to get through and get my point across, but it's not always because I'm a woman, but also because of my age, because I was quite young. For example, when I was attending all the design team meetings, I was the youngest there, and actually there were other women there too. One other woman, sorry. But it was, so in my case, a lot of it was down to age. But I think maybe because I'm Polish and I'm quite outspoken, I didn't really have that much problem. I just kind of start talking anyway, I guess. I see another one. To specialize in a single thing and put all your force in that, or have a wide knowledge in a lot of areas. So some people say that if you do everything, you can't really do anything properly. So I think you should try and keep your mind, you should be very open-minded, and you should be aware of things, but you shouldn't necessarily study them like precisely. I mean, as I said, with the buildings regulations, you don't have to know them by heart. You just need to know the gist of it, and you just need to know where to go, where to find the information when and as you need it, okay? But in terms of finding your specialization, you can change it all the time. If you get bored with doing facades, you just move on to something else. So this is what's great about architecture. You never get bored, and you always keep learning. So I can't really say it's better to specialize in something, because you will naturally specialize in something. Something will come to you naturally. I'm overusing the word naturally, but when you are working on a project and you get to do something, and it will be easy for you, you won't be even noticing it, but you'll just be doing more and more of it, and then your project manager will put you on more of tasks like this, because it's just natural for you, natural workflow. And if it doesn't work for you, they will be changing your position, so they will be putting you on different tasks, so yeah, it's not a matter of better or worse specializing in something or having a knowledge of a lot of areas. You have knowledge in a lot of areas anyway, but you'll be learning all the time. It's not something you just sit and decide, first day in the office, I'm like, I only am going to ever do external envelope. That's not going to happen. You will always get, people will be even pulling you from different teams to help out with just some other different tasks because they're struggling. And then, by force, you will have to, for example, someone will pull you off your team for 2 days because they need to deal with this planning application. And you just have to learn something new in 2 days, What's the process to become qualified in Poland? I just had to, because I've done all my training, and I've done this when we were still in the European Union. I just had to send lots of documents, and yeah, it wasn't really that hard. It was, you have to obtain a document from Architects Registration Board, I think, and yeah, it all gets approved. So you don't have to do, I didn't have to do any extra tests, but I don't know how it is now, because now we're out of the European Union. Okay, I see Mr. Roger has his hand up.
Natalia, hi, thank you
Hi.
for your contribution today. It's been really valuable. What I've drawn from it is that many students think that design is a linear process, and you've shown us tonight that actually it's an iterative and a very dynamic process. You've also shown us that there are different routes into the world of architecture and in interior architecture, and I think that's really valuable in that individuals can find their places within a very, very complex ecology. I've got, I guess, 2 questions. My first question is, do you think there's any conflict of interest in being a lead consultant and architect? And my second question is around that you describe a particular paradigm of practice, which is large and commercial. But I wonder how you see architecture post-pandemic, I kind of wonder what the role of the mall's going to be, or the role of the office complexes is going to be going forward.
Oh, that's a very good question. I've been detached from it for the past few months. But yeah, everything's changing. I mean, I think the shift started even before the pandemic, because there was a lot of changes in office spaces already. It was becoming more homely, kind of, offices were becoming fun. It was no longer just boxes and desks, and companies such as Google had hot desking already before the pandemic. So I think that in case of architectural practices will not move away from offices, because we are very much team work based career, yeah, and we also brainstorm with visual tools. So we are there around the table, 7 of us, 10 of us, with one drawing, and everyone is drawing over each other. And that's how we think. That's how we solve problems. That's how we communicate with the client through a drawing. That's how we communicate with all the other disciplines through 3D models, etc. We've been already adapting. Yes, we've had all our meetings through Teams, etc. And it's not the same. You can share your screen, but it's not the same, because not everyone at the same time can put their hand and start arguing and slapping their hands, etc., etc. So in terms of architecture, I don't think we will move away from offices. It's good that now we know that it can work. So it is possible for architects to work remotely. But I think I digressed a bit, because your question was in terms of projects, what's going to happen to those massive commercial projects. They're adapting as well. A lot of it. I mean, even before the pandemic, it was already changing. Shopping malls, because the online shopping was taking over. So it was changing before the pandemic, and developers such as Westfield, they were doing a lot of research, and they were introducing all extra curriculum kind of stuff into the project. For example, that project also had a residential quarter to it, and it was part of a bigger development in the Royal Oak area. But they are adapting as well. I think this pandemic has set them back even more, but I think they will adapt, because shopping malls will be more than just a place where you go to purchase something. It's a place where you go to socialize. That's why you have all those restaurants, restaurant quarters. In terms of offices, as I said, not just for architecture, but they will remain, but the inside will change, I think. So it will be different how the layouts are and what the clients will be seeking. That will be different, but we will still continue to build. And actually, there's a big push to retrofit, for example. So, sorry, the first question, I think I missed that. Oh, conflict of interest.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I wasn't a part of the higher negotiations, if you will, at that time, because I was freshly out of my diploma. So I was part 2, and maybe I wasn't privy to those any such discussions. I don't really pay attention, so I don't want to give my opinion, because I can't really remember. I was so consumed by what was happening. It was such an intense project. So I don't really.
I'm not suggesting by any means it is, or it should be, or it would be, but I'm just reflecting upon the kind of structures that you were showing us, and trying to understand those really both delicate and dynamic relationships, I guess.
Well, it's all down to the contract and all
Yeah.
the contract particulars. So we just had to really had our hand on the pulse, and to be honest, even I was I did actually look at the contract because I was studying for my part 3 later on, because
Sure.
I was 3 years on that project. So our project manager and the partners, they were really hands-on and they were looking after everything.
Yeah.
So I don't think that was a problem. We did have a lot of responsibility overall, and it was quite a harsh contract. But as I said, the client was pretty difficult. Okay, any more questions? Yep, the rest have gone to sleep, I think. Thank you. Pleasure. I really hope you find it useful. I mean, there's so much information, guys, so much available to you. It wasn't like that 12 years ago. There was a lot available, but it wasn't like that. So really all you have to do is reach out, and you can really get ahead. So yeah, I think that's it. Beyonce, Jubilee.
Thank you very much, Natalia, for coming in to share your insight into the industry. It was very welcoming and really insightful to know what was like inside the industry and stuff. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Natalia. It's been really great having you.
Thank you, guys.
Could I just add, on behalf of PSA, a big thank you to the PASS team for, going above and beyond again, for putting on this lecture series that I think is so valuable. So I'd like to thank, on behalf of the school, all of the guys that have been working on this so hard, above and beyond what they do every day.
It's a great initiative.
Thanks, Roger.
Thank you, Natalia.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening. And I will pass on the notes to Beyonce.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. We can get that out to people. That's very useful.
All right, then.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good rest of your evening, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a great evening.
You too. Bye.